Let's talk about unhealthy relationships. Let's speak to why we may remain in unhealthy relationships. Sometimes we call it toxic relationships. In reality, toxicity in relationship is behavior that is not sustainable. So unhealthy relationships are not serving our highest good. They're not serving our hearts. They're not helping us become better versions of ourselves. Maybe down the track when we really learn from them, but in that moment, they're creating dense energies. They're pulling us back into experiences that were very challenging for us. They're bringing up a lot of stuff. Now, here's the thing with unhealthy relationships. They serve two purposes. The first is to help pull us out of a repetitive pattern that we may find ourselves in. Let me give you an example. Say you have all these different relationships. So you're experiencing love and intimacy, and you're noticing that there's this pattern in your relationships that you just keep experiencing. It's the same thing over and over again. Maybe you're attracting really jealous partners, and you're just starting to notice it maybe after the fifth time. And you start asking yourself, why am I in this unhealthy dynamic? Why am I attracting really jealous, needy partners? Now, that's a great question to ask. But here's maybe a better question to ask. What is the role that I am playing in this relationship? What is the role? Because I seem to be the common denominator that keeps attracting these unhealthy relationship dynamics. I'm the one that's here, the common denominator that keeps attracting jealousy, insecurity, neediness. What is my role? And so here's the opportunity for unhealthy relationships. The opportunity is to realize the patterns that keep playing out and do something about them. Break the habit. Dr. Joe Dispenza speaks this. Break the habit of being yourself. It begins with awareness. It begins with knowing who we are. It begins with understanding ourselves and then wanting to make a change, because at some part, or at some of the part of the process, we are actually addicted to that dynamic as well because it's serving a purpose. Now, in this case, why would someone maybe keep attracting neediness, insecurity, or jealousy? So, depending on who you are, depending on how you've been brought up, depending on your upbringing, how you've interpreted your environment, how you've interpreted your life, there's an opportunity for you to look at how you present yourself in the world, your self-worth, your connection to your sexuality, your connection to your self-belief, how you value yourself, how you conduct yourself, how you seek attention, how you give and receive love. This is an opportunity to go within. That's one of the biggest opportunities with any relationship dynamic. But when it's unhealthy, it's extreme and it's intense and it's teaching us something. But here's what most of us do. Most of us leave the relationship prematurely because of the pain that we're experiencing without learning and growing from it. And then later on, we just want to recover from the relationship. We want to recover from the difficulty and the pain and the challenges that we experience in that relationship. So what do? We generally numb ourselves. We distract ourselves. We forget about the relationship, and we move on to maybe it's alcohol, maybe it's excessively working, maybe it's drugs, maybe it's the new project, maybe it's excessively traveling, maybe it's over socializing. Whatever it is, we're not addressing the patterns that are recurring in that relationship, and guess what happens? We continue to experience the same experiences with different people moving forward because we're not dealing with what the message or the messages of the unhealthy relationship is attempting to give us. So the opportunity comes to going in within self, looking, keenly observing, what is our role? What are the patterns? Now, unhealthy relationships are insight into the patterns. They're insight into who we are. There are also opportunities to help not only ourselves heal, but help others heal with respect to how we show up. Again, it's an inside job. Forgiveness is an inside job. neutralizing dense emotions are an inside job. Making transformation, creating transformation and change in our lives, it's an inside job. And so we get to do that because an unhealthy relationship is an alarm bell, or it's a series of alarm bells. And so we're more likely to pay attention to it. But what we normally do, instead of paying attention, asking key questions to determine the quality of our lives, because the quality of the questions we ask determine the quality of the lives that we live. Instead of asking key questions, we push it away. We say there's something wrong with that person. They're being needy, they're being jealous, they're being insecure. I can't deal with that. That doesn't work for me. We make it about them, and we don't take the responsibility that we're bringing into the relationship. And that's where some of the wisdom and the traction for growth and transformation gets lost, in that space. And we also don't give ourselves an opportunity to heal, but also help the other heal through our own healing. We're relational beings. Let me be really clear on something. We are not responsible for the growth of, or responsible for the transmutation, transformation, change of anyone else. Definitely not. However, we're relational beings. We're not quote unquote codependent in unhealthy ways, but codependency is a spectrum. We rely on each other. That's how we grow, that's how we learn, that's how we experience the joys of life, that's how we experience trials and tribulation. We learn from each other. We are feedback for each other, we are mirrors for each other. A healthy relationship may still cause each other difficulty and challenge, but a healthy relationship says, I'm committed to this journey, I'm willing to be here, and I'm willing to support you, and I'm willing to shine a torch on all the dark places within you that you can't see, and I want that from you to me. An unhealthy relationship is toxic in the sense that it's coming from unresolved, often unconscious wounding that is bumping up against each other. Usually unresolved childhood issues, developmental issues, ways that you've now seen the world based on what you've experienced that doesn't serve you. However, we keep playing out these patterns as if it's our responsibility to adhere to these past versions of self. And it's not. That's not the truth. The truth is that we deserve every opportunity to shift what doesn't serve us anymore. And we bring these coping strategies in from our childhood. We bring them into our adult relationships because they once protected us. These compensatory strategies or coping strategies, protective strategies that once helped us survive and feel safe. But we keep bringing them in to our adult relationships and predetermining what the relationship is going to look like because the behavior is what it was from the past. And the truth is that the relationship may not need to be unsafe. It may not need to be volatile. It may not need to be painful. But when we bring those coping strategies and those beliefs into the relationship unchecked, we trigger the unconscious wounds of the other as well. And so how we heal unhealthy relationships is healing ourselves. Taking a moment to recognize the value of the unhealthy relationship. That's our power. That's our superpower, is awareness. That's where it begins at least. Then difficult work is required. You have to move through some letting go, some releasing of old shit. And that's painful, but we get to do that together because intimacy, sexual intimacy, emotional intimacy, romantic intimacy, it brings us to our edges, it challenges us, it brings us to the threshold of what we think is possible. Because we don't want to change those parts of ourselves, those egoic parts of ourselves that are locked into the past. They're locked into the past because they think if they stay in that place, they're going to be protected. That means the whole of you will be protected. We have to have a gentle conversation, a graceful, compassionate conversation with those parts of ourselves that are in fear. That, hey, it's okay, it's safe. Let's go into the unknown. And an unhealthy relationship can do that. Now, if your life is at risk, if you're threatened, you've got to leave that relationship. That's a different kind of unhealthy relationship. I'm talking about unconscious childhood wounding, pressing up against itself. You're wounding, they're wounding, colliding and clashing like two stars in the cosmos. That's a different type of wounding. That's a different type of unhealthy to I'm being sexually or physically abused. What can I learn from this? What am I doing to bring this in? You got to get the fuck out. You've got to create safety, physical safety and space for yourself. That's a very different type of unhealthy relationship. Let me be really clear on that. And so in that opportunity, you get to create safety for yourself and healthy boundaries, and you get to do what you need to in order to do that. But when unconscious behavioral emotional patterns are playing into each other and we're experiencing friction and tension, and we're noticing that this keeps happening all throughout our lives, we get to ask the question, what is really happening here for us? Why are we doing this? Why are we creating this? What is our role and what could we be doing differently? Where am I wounded or in pain? Where am I behaving in a way that's really non-serving? How can I shift that? Anything that we experience in life, any relationship dynamic, is an opportunity for growth. It's an opportunity to shift ourselves from the undesirable to the desirable. I want to read a question here before I move on. What is the pattern of or belief if someone's never been in a relationship? Well, that could be that you're unworthy of love or unworthy of being in a relationship. It could mean that you experienced very hostile, volatile, toxic, unhealthy relationships as a child. So your definition of relationship or your examples of relationship aren't healthy and they haven't been healthy. And so there's a fear to even move into a relationship just in case you replicate that because that's all you know. So my suggestion in this space is look for examples in your physical world, but also in the world that are really healthy relationships and know that they're possible. And also work on the pain that you're harboring, the fears that you have. You seek support, a counselor, a coach, a mentor, a guide. I support people with this in their everyday lives. I work with couples. I help relationships thrive. I help men excel in the world. I help women understand men and heal their own pain and trauma. And so find yourself someone that can support you on this journey. That's imperative. I think there's another question. Okay, great. No, it's just a comment. Great. Keep observing where you are in your world. Keep observing what's working for you and what's not. That's going to be a massive help in terms of the pattern recognition because our brains and our environment our brains are pattern recognition machines. And so we notice patterns in our environment and our brain responds to that. And so if you're accustomed to fear and pain and wounding, you will notice more of that. You will bring more of that into your life. You will begin to deal with that, but you will attract more of it so you can deal with it to keep safe. This is a trauma response. We get to work through that in intimate relationships, and we get to not run, and we get to heal and help ourselves. Many blessings on your journey. Look forward to seeing you again soon.